Anthony Crimmins here, StickStar Lacrosse, StickStar Production, StickStar Report 18, here for a little chat and a state championship weekend preview. We just moved past the Super Regionals and are moving with purpose toward the culmination of what we like to call the second season. StickStar has brought you in-depth coverage of high school lacrosse for the past 8 years. Both of us played high school lacrosse in Texas and very strongly believe in the players of the Lone Star State. Today I'm joined by Kyle Saunders. You know him from our time on the mic covering both high school and Lone Star Lacrosse, Lone Star Alliance lacrosse action. He's also an assistant at Southlake and has seen many of the players competing this weekend on the field. Kyle, welcome back to Josey Records, our studio away from home.
Yeah, it's a great studio away from home. This place is unbelievable. Every time I come in here, I'm just like, I can't believe we get to use these facilities. Very grateful to Josey Records for having us. If you guys haven't been out here, make sure you get down here. Check it out. They've got vinyl, DVDs, games, books, turntables, merch, whatever you want.
They've got all of it.
Yeah.
And it's constantly growing. They've got more racks, more books, more vinyl, everything you can want here. We are at Josey Records doing our second ever show and our first ever state championship Final Four preview. You've heard us talk about Josey Records before. It's a music mecca at 2821 LBJ Freeway, Suite 110, 15,000 square feet of music greatness. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to break down a couple of topics. First, we're going to go into a super regional recap, how we got to the state championship weekend. Next, we're going to break down the Final Four at both the D1 and D2 levels. Then we are going to hop into an All-American preview of many of the best players in the state. And finally, we are going to shamelessly plug our upcoming StickStar events, which include the state championship seminar, the Texas All-Star Roundup, and the 9th annual StickStar Showcase. To begin, let's go ahead and get into a little super regional recap. The super regionals are well, they're not the beginning of the second season because technically there's end of year.
Right, there's either district playoffs or play-in games. There's a district tournament down in the Central. Up here, we do a little district playoff action with a play-in game to determine, who moves on into the super regionals. Every district does it a little bit different, but that's how we're here to the super regionals.
Yeah, and at the super regionals, 20 games are played for us to get our Final Four groupings at the D1 and the D2 level. 16 teams compete at the D2 level, so it's actually a really large tournament feel. People are blowing me up, my bad. So let's go ahead and jump right into the D2 action. Kyle, what do you got for us?
Well, we'll start with the North Super Regionals hosted by Allen. I think it's important to note that each super regional, right, is hosted by a host program. In Dallas, it was Allen. This is our fundraising events for these programs. It takes a ridiculous amount of volunteer and man hours to pull these off. I was able to attend. I was out in Allen most of the weekend, saw most of those games out there, and they put on a first-class operation. It was a great venue, appropriately sized, good crowds, and it seemed like it all went off without a hitch to, the innocent spectator that I am. I could tell that a lot of the volunteers and parents, they were tired by the end of it. They spent a lot of time in the sun working very hard to pull that off. So a huge thank you and congrats to the parents and volunteers of the Allen Lacrosse Association. But in the first game, you had Magnolia and Prosper. Magnolia was a 4 seed coming out of Houston, the South District, while Prosper was the North seed in the 1. Prosper, for a lot of people, including myself, at the beginning of the season, you're like, man, Prosper could make a run at it. They could be a favorite or one of the favorites to win it all. And to me, this game, Magnolia was a little banged up. They had some guys missing. They had to travel, where Prosper got to sleep in their own beds. And, you know, Prosper won that game handily, 16-1, to advance into what would be the state quarterfinal on Sunday. The other game was Regents out of Austin, the Central number 3 seed down there, versus Smithson Valley out of San Antonio, the 4 seed. 2 guys for Regents really just took over. Trey Freilich and Will Snell just had a field day in that game. It was a 10-4 win. So again, pretty pedestrian to be able to move on into the state quarterfinal on Sunday. This matchup was really interesting, right? On Sunday, you saw Prosper and Regents going at it, and on paper, you'd say, well, you know, this game could be competitive, but I think Prosper is probably going to get after him a little bit. And that really wasn't the case. I mean, Regents came to play. They came out, kind of got after him a little bit. 5-2 in the first half. Trey Freilich had a day. The kid, he's going to RPI. He's legit. He had 3-1 in the first half. He ended with 4-1. Played attack pretty much the whole game, and but the second half, that's when Prosper really kind of started to get it going. Third quarter was kind of slow. Each team kind of trading turnovers and stops on the defensive end. Prosper had some trouble clearing the ball, as did Regents, but late in the third, Cole Schmidt went off and really started to get it going. Great dynamic little attackman. 3 in a row. He had 2 to end the third quarter, and then a third to start the fourth. So his hat trick really provided the momentum for this pretty epic comeback. I mean, this game was really, really entertaining. And ultimately, Prosper was able to punch their ticket through to the Final Four weekend down in Austin with a 7-6 win. Unfortunately, Regents only getting a bucket in the second half, was unable to pull off what would have been a pretty good upset.
Yeah, that would have been a major upset. John Morano has settled in there, moving from Green Hill last year. He's done a good job with that group. And the Prosper Eagles, they're rolling. Next district, Central District, how'd that turn out?
Well, down there you had Plano East. They were the North 4 seed taking on Westlake, the Central 1 seed. Westlake, one of the few programs in the state with a D2 program. They've had theirs intact now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I think, something like that. That game was really close. It was 12-10, you know, which is awesome to see, right? Typically, it's an all-Dallas Final Four at the D2 level. To see Westlake D2 and that program kind of come to maturation and start to be competitive and get to Final Four weekend. They've always been competitive, but to get to Final Four weekend is a major step for them. So they were able to win that. And then, you know, the next game down there was the Fort Worth Saints, who was the North 5, playing Lingham Creek, the South 2. Lingham Creek Lobos, Coach Brennan Hunt's group, he has done a phenomenal job building that program up. They've got tons of quality athletes and skilled players playing for them down there. They cruised to a 9-0 victory in that first super regional game. And so they would go on to take Westlake, to take on Westlake on Sunday and the quarterfinal matchup. As we already mentioned, Westlake was able to come away with that. They punched their ticket to the Final Four weekend. First time ever for Westlake's Division II program to get there. They've come close, came really close with the 2018 grouping that we'll get to them a little bit later. But when the 2018s at Westlake were in that D2 program. They had a great season and were unable to punch their ticket through, but that game was close too. It was a 10-9 win, and it's just awesome to me to see all of these one-goal games in the D2 Super Regional to move on. It just tells me that, you know, there's parity. It's getting more competitive across the state, and that's what it's all about.
It'll be interesting to see if this parity continues on into the Final Four weekend, because these games have been so close. Obviously, these teams are very competitive. I think that with Westlake D2, when you kind of look at their roster, some of the times when the programs that have both D1 and D2 teams, the D2 team is mostly like freshmen and sophomores, right? But I think that due to the logjam of talent with that 2018 class for Westlake, now they've got juniors on the squad. They've got talented juniors. So they're a little bit older, right? So they can kind of match up a little bit better with, a lot of these D2 teams who it is their only team, and they're mostly seniors and juniors. Langham Creek, again, like you said, great job this year. Shout out to Langham Creek. They wear our uniforms. We appreciate it. They look good. They got khaki shorts, and they are going to be back next year because they have a lot of young guys on the roster. Cruising down into San Antonio, what happened down there?
San Antonio. Another round of pretty competitive games. McNeil, the Central 4, taking on Reagan, the San Antonio 1 seed. I believe this was Reagan's third year in a row, the three-peat, to win the district title down there under Coach Mike Brand and company. Competitive game, 15-9. The game was a little closer, I think, than the score indicates. But ultimately, Reagan, they won their first playoff game in program history and were able to advance to the state quarterfinals. That's a big deal for a program that's building out of San Antonio. And then you had the Woodlands South number 3 versus Highland Park, the North number 2. This game was ridiculous. 8-6, again, another very close game. Both of these teams, obviously have a very, very talented Division I program, and the D2 teams are really starting to get going too, so they're both in a very healthy spot. Ultimately, Highland Park came away with that one 8-6, and then on Sunday, HP D2 was able to punch their ticket into Final Four weekend down in Austin. It's actually at Round Rock. They went up like 5-0, and then were able to double up Reagan 10-5. But again, great showing for Reagan this season, three-peat down in the San Antonio district, and winning their first playoff game as a program.
The Woodlands Highland Park matchup kind of had some people scratching their heads a little bit because just of how the end of season tournament shook out down in the south, right? The Woodlands dropped a game to Klein that some people thought they might have had a shot at winning. And then Highland Park actually lost to the Woodlands 14-3 the first time they played, and they were actually able to come back and win 8-6, which is pretty intriguing. And the Scots are dancing once again. South District, last district. What happened there?
You had Atascocita, the South 5 versus Klein. The South number 1 seed, as you just mentioned, Klein was able to knock off the Woodlands D2 program and secure that 1 seed, which that was a huge win for them because it set the table nicely to be able to advance here into Final Four weekend. They cruised in that game 16-6, and then you had Green Hill, the North 3 versus Georgetown, the Central 2. This game is nuts. The results of this game was very surprising to me. I think it surprised a lot of people out there You know, Georgetown has been absolutely rolling. Their program's been building. Scott Conrad did a great job getting that thing going. He ended up leaving, and Justin Becker took over the program and just kind of carried the torch right along. They were rolling this year, and ultimately Green Hill was able to get past them 10-7. It was a competitive game all the way through. Heated matchup, but Green Hill pulled off, I think, the first major upset that we saw this weekend. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Georgetown was dominant all year, but then they kind of had a hiccup against Westlake in the championship, not taking anything away from the Chaps D2 squad, but, you know, from all signs with how Georgetown was playing, I'm not sure if they had any injuries, but, you know, that was tough. And then Green Hill playing without Mason Morano because he's been injured for the last couple of weeks with a foot injury. You know, they have definitely a lot of talent, but that was a game that, you know, Georgetown would have liked to have won, and Green Hill was up to the task, and I believe they had a goalie goal in that one. So, and then in the other matchup, you know, Klein's kind of been on a roll. Atascocita, shout out to Atascocita. They've really gotten that thing going over there. They've improved tremendously, and the D2 Houston bracket is very competitive. There was a lot of parity there this year, so it was very interesting. And then, you know, you have Klein versus Green Hill.
Yeah, Klein and Green Hill, again, a one-goal game, which, again, speaks to that parity and competitiveness. I mean, it's awesome to see these one-goal games to go. You know, these teams are competing for Final Four spots and a chance to make a run at a state title. And to have another one-goal game is pretty awesome. Klein ended up winning that 10-9 over Green Hill, as you mentioned. Mason Morano was a big loss for them. That kid did it all at the face-off X. Division I commit. He's plays offense for them. D-Midi, I mean, he really doesn't come off the field much when he is healthy. Was a huge piece of the success for Green Hill last year, making it all the way to the state championship game before losing to Rockwall. And so he was definitely missed, but hats off to Klein. They punched their ticket through. They're dancing. It's dancing season. It's the first time for Klein to get there in quite a while. When was the last time that happened?
So the last time they made it to the championship was 2012, where they lost to Highland Park by a bucket. And they actually won it in 2006. Which is a hot minute ago. Right.
It's great to see that program growing and getting back to that competitive level.
Yeah, Klein is on a 6-game win streak. Yep, that's what I count, 6. Their last loss was to Woodlands D2, 7-12. They remedied that in the city championships. They beat, well, in the city tournament at the Houston D2 level, they beat Langham Creek for the championship. And, you know, now they're dancing 3 one-goal games, which will match up with Klein and Highland Park playing in the first round, or in the Final Four, and then Westlake versus Prosper. Klein, Highland Park at 10 a.m., Westlake versus Prosper at noon.
Yeah, how do you feel about this Klein Highland Park matchup?
Well, the first time they played, I believe Highland Park got after them 14-7. But everybody's improving, right, across the board. Highland Park D2 is improving. Klein's improving. Again, Highland Park, they've got some pretty key contributors on that team. They've got some solid juniors. Some of the awards went to, for Highland Park, that's not the updated one. Doesn't look like.
Yeah, I mean, both these teams are obviously battle tested. They've played tough schedules. They've played in close games. So I expect this game to be extremely competitive. You know, Klein's got probably a little bit more age on the roster.
A little bit,
but not a ton.
Yeah, there's no There's no seniors on that HPD2 team, which kind of changes things up, but they have some quality juniors. Midfielder Cameron Wilson, he was All-State for the Scots. And then also Peter Addington down at defense, he was a junior. He was All-State. And then you've got some studs, like some flat-out studs who are just kind of in the incubator right now. All-State attackman Thomas Mankey.
Southpaw.
Yeah, he's a lefty. He's pretty good. And then you've got, at the face-off X, Anthony Gabriel, who's another freshman who's kind of automatic. That'll actually be a pretty good little face-off duel, him and Cooper George out of Klein. And then also Andrew Bonnet. He's at LSM out of Highland Park.
Scary man coming after you at the LSM position.
Pretty good. And then somebody who was left off the all-state and all-district list was Harrison Key. Not sure how you do that, but they did it. And he had 10 goals in a game in the first round against Lovejoy, which is a lot of goals in a game. That's 2 hands worth of goals. Other guys who add value there are Brooks Bond and Harrison Fraser. So they've got more than enough talent at HP, but you know, don't sleep on Klein. They got good guys as well. You know, like we talked about, Colby Barnett. He's an all-state goalie. He's a sophomore for those guys. Ryan Crouch. He chews on people. He wreaks havoc at LSM for Klein. And then, you know, we talked about Cooper George at the face-off X. He was all-district. John Diggins, he's a midfielder. He's a sophomore. Austin Payton and Wade Rhodes are also going to add value there as well. So, I mean, that's going to be a tough game.
Tough game. And then you got Westlake and Prosper. You know, that's the other semifinal matchup. As you mentioned, Coach Morano getting it going over there and Prosper in his first season. You know, Prosper's got dudes. You know, preseason, we didn't put this out there, but that was my pick to win it all. You know, when you look at Luke Tigan, he's out there running around at LSM, lefty LSM. Just got Dangles. Kid just committed to Drexel here recently, so he's pretty legit. And then, you know, down at attack, we already mentioned Cole Schmidt. That kid is good. It was the first time I'd seen him play, but he immediately jumped off the page to me. You've got Zane Williams. That kid is a great ball carrier, unbelievable vision, hoops player, was for a long time, moves like a basketball player. He looks a little different when he runs than a lot of people. Extremely athletic and long attackman, and then obviously Hayden Stout and some other ones.
Yeah, they've got plenty of guys. Carson Fearon down at defense, Jared Bruck, senior midfielder, all district, Cade Parham, also a junior defenseman. So they're capable. It will be, you know, once you get to the dance, anybody can win it.
Yeah.
Anybody can win it. So we will, I think we're done covering D2. I think that's pretty much it at the D2 level.
Yeah, Westlake's roster is stacked too.
Yeah, they got guys. I mean, in cage, Rowdy Brown.
All name team.
Yeah.
Rowdy.
He's pretty sensational in cage. And then, you know, you got a lot of juniors who are adding a lot of value. I'm going to not say this right. Jack Mirier.
Moreau.
Right? Or that. Matthew Okamoto. I got that one right. John Mark Boger. Michael Dodgen. He's a midi, so makes sense that he's dodging. Wes Mizell, shout out Luke Mizell. And then defensively, some underclassmen, Will Rhodes and Christian Fournier. Those guys were both all-state. So
ridiculous athletes across the board on both of these teams. Westlake is loaded with them. A lot of those guys play football down there and kind of the varsity feeder program. So it's going to be an awesome weekend of Division II lacrosse here and the great state.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the D1 Super Regional action.
Let's do it.
D1, a little bit different. You've got 3 districts, not 4. You've got Houston, Austin, and Dallas. You don't have San Antonio. They're D2. So the way it works is state championships in Austin, 2 super regionals in the other locations, Allen and Kingwood this year. So we'll jump into Allen. One of the major storylines heading into this was when you look at the bracket, which is a tough bracket.
The Allen bracket?
Well, just the bracket. The bracket in general.
Yeah, there's some really good lacrosse being played by these teams in the bracket.
Right, and you can't say that there's an easier path, but there's just a certain path where, you know, you got one set of schools, okay? So one of the major storylines was another thing that happens at the D1 level is the top 3 teams from Houston Central, Houston, which is the South, Central, Austin, and then North, Dallas, is the second seed from the host city gets a first round bye.
Right.
So this year, it's in the Central District, so Lake Travis got a first round bye. So the number 1 seeds were ESD, Westlake, and the Woodlands. And then Lake Travis also got a bye. But because, you know, the number 1 seed out of Dallas was pretty coveted this year, ESD managed to stay on the other side of the Jesuit, Woodlands, Highland Park, Westlake bracket.
Group of death.
Right, which is, I mean, it is what it is. That's a tougher side of the bracket.
No doubt.
Well, we're going to get into, we'll get into it first, and then we'll kind of explain what we were going to say. In Allen, first round matchup, Dripping Springs versus Drake Jesuit. 11-10 victory for Dripping Springs. Their first time to make it to the Super Regionals?
First time to make it to the Super Regionals. First playoff victory for them as well. Pretty awesome season there for the Tigers and Coach Caffaretta. Shout out Coach Zoda. One of our dudes. So, yeah, it's an unbelievable season. They brought the hammer with them. And that game was extremely exciting, too. Drip kind of jumped out on them. But Seamus McFarland and Sean Moet Larson, they kind of started to get it going. Incredible comeback, exciting finish. Drip had a lot of issues with Strake's 10-man ride, which caused a lot of turnovers, and for, you know, the Strake Jesuit team, that 10-man ride allowed them the opportunity to come back and make that game close.
Yeah, the Mighty Tigers were able to pull it out. They were able to make it happen, and they got the opportunity to play ESD on Sunday. In the other game was the North District 4 seed taking on the South District 2 seed, St. Mark's versus St. John's, an SPC matchup, which was actually a rematch of a Final Four game in the SPC tournament. St. Mark's won that game, and they were able to win this game as well. Pretty close margin, 2-goal game. St. John's was in it the whole time. Coach Cohn doing a great job down there at St. John's, really getting that program going. Legendary Coach Sam Chambers handed the baton off to Coach Cohn, and he really made an impact, especially this year, his second year with the program.
Yeah, he's running with it. That game, it was close for a half at the SPCs down in Austin, and then St. Mark's kind of ran away with it. So it was a rematch of a game that was close at a half, so you had a feeling that if St. John's could put together 4 quarters, that it would be a very close game, and it was. You know, St. John's is coming. Tough loss, but they got offensive dudes, man, and they're young offensive guys. Ro Crawford played great. Ashton Anton played outstanding.
Austin Beebe.
Yeah, Beebe was great at the X.
Killer Cam Howley.
Yeah, he can shoot the ball. All those guys really showed up and shot the ball extremely well against a very talented John Gunnan and Cage for St. Mark's.
2 seniors kind of paced the effort for that team. Brock Cannon down at defense, and then Charles, Charles Sampson, who is excellent, very strong, athletic midfielder, do it all. You know, they put together a great season, and they look to keep that thing rolling. So then, survive and advance. Dripping Springs would take on ESD, and then St. Mark's would take on Lake Travis. Dripping Springs versus ESD, kind of a tough matchup right now. ESD, the 1 seed out of Dallas. They're kind of rolling. They're putting up an absurd amount of goals right now.
Yeah, they get a lot of buckets, man. Not only that, obviously offensively, you've got Rick Skowniak, Drew Wasserman. I mean, the Danny Kong, Loftus,
Mo Daddy.
Yeah. Brendan Moe,
Blair Oden, who has really come on as of late to be an absolutely dominant midfielder.
Yeah, Dundon's getting buckets inside, finishing the rock. I mean, and then defensively.
Good luck.
They're put together nicely. You know, they've got the face-off guy at the X, John Heldman, goalie, check, PK. Our guy, Prescott King.
Who I would give goalie of the year to. If I was going to give out an award right now, I'm going to go ahead and tally him as a All-American this year, because I think that he's been outstanding in a lot of one-goal games.
Yeah, why don't you talk about these Terminators they got running around on defense down there?
Yeah. Scott Bauer, Carson Rainey, Andrew Griffin is 7 feet tall.
Yeah, they're big. They're put together all over the field. I mean, it's, you know, Dripping Springs, great program, great season, but just not a favorable matchup at this moment in time. The next game, though, St. Mark's and Lake Travis, you know, on paper, looks like a great matchup, right? And I think it was. I was able to watch that game, and Lake Travis had some trouble finishing the ball early on, which they had some opportunities, they didn't finish it. And against that team and St. Mark's, I know from experience, if you don't finish some of those early opportunities that you have, good luck seeing the ball for pretty much the rest of the game. And that was kind of the story of it as I watched that game.
Yeah, Coach Lee getting him going. Big shocker. He's got him back in the Final Four in his second year. Don't know if anybody would have picked that at the beginning of the year. Would have said they were in the running for it. A strong defensive unit. Down low, they've got their goalie, John Gunnan. He's going to Colgate. 2 heavy lifters at the offensive side of the field. Garrett Mize, Sam Schroeder, both seniors. Both very, very, very good.
What's brutal about St. Mark's is you watch them play and you're like, man, Garrett Mize and Schroeder, we got to get to those dudes, right? Schroeder, you got to be in his hands. You can't give him any room because he will pull it righty or lefty from anywhere on the field, and it's coming really hard to corners. Mize, he's got the best high step, rocker step, hesitation step, one of the best feet of any offensive player out there. I mean, this kid's explosive. He floats whenever he carries. But so you shut those 2 guys down, right? Well, then you got Willie Wood. Willie Wood's over there just finishing buckets. Josh Daniels is unbelievable. Titus McGowan's coming on. You know, you take care of the top 2, but then the other guys burn you. So it's really tough. They can beat you dodging from X, off of the invert, down the alley, up top shooting, and then once they got you in those 2 spots, you start freaking out, and now they're just getting dunks inside. Face-off guy has been pretty good, but really where they shine to me in gaining possession is their wing play is unbelievable. They've got scary dudes that will, even if you win the face-off, you're likely getting double, triple teamed, and the ball's going back on the ground, and they really get after it in the ground ball battle. So that game was tough for Lake Travis. Like I said, they didn't finish their first couple opportunities, and a big scratch for them is Ty Badchung, the Denver commit. He plays midfield for them. He's a do-it-all type guy. He's got a broken jaw that he suffered against their Vandergrift game a couple weeks ago, so he did not play, which certainly had an impact in their ability to run effective offense.
Seniors who will be missed by both Lake Travis and Dripping Springs include, for Lake Travis, Jackson Rose, Pellegrino, Colzarola, Bad Young. I mean, those guys really did a great job. And then at Dripping Springs, Gabe Reno, who was outstanding this year, Connor Jamail, some pretty awesome players in the Central District that are just very, very skilled and will continue to play at the next level. In Houston, we traveled down to Houston now, the Super Regional down there, where you saw first Austin High take on Dallas Jesuit. That was Austin High, the Central 4 seed, take on Dallas Jesuit, the 3 seed out of the North District. And then you saw Kingwood take on Highland Park, Kingwood the 4 seed, Highland Park the 2 seed out of the North. Austin High versus Dallas Jesuit, 9-4. Jesuit gets the win. A game that, when you look at it, you kind of think that that might happen. The Rangers looking for the three-peat this year. Very talented offensive group down there. Pretty talented, pretty put together across the table. Austin High, a team on the rise. Jordan Ruggieri did a great job this year. I believe he was the coach of the year down there in Austin. Really has had Austin High into the Super Regionals the last 2 years. They got some pretty good guys down there on defense. You got Walt Alexander and Peter Lane, just absolutely disruptive force. So 9-4, pretty close. Yeah, that's a good score.
That is a good score. You know, Jesuit was able to get Tabor back, which was big. They'd been missing him for a couple weeks. You know, 9-4, great showing by Austin High. Nice win there by Jesuit. Kind of, like we said, as expected, just a tough matchup for the Maroons, and Jesuit was able to advance.
Next game, as we said, was Kingwood versus Highland Park. Highland Park kind of put together a pretty unbelievable effort. 20-4, they dispatched the Kingwood Mustangs. Highland Park, you know, that's a game that you're kind of expecting them to win. Kingwood put together a good season. They continue to improve. They've got some quality sophomores. Their goalie, Lucas Borchers, and they've got John Imperato at the midfield. So Kingwood continues to improve under Coach Platt. And you know, Kingwood's had a rough year just because of the flood down there. I don't think they've been going to school at Kingwood all year. So that changes things up.
Yeah, Harvey really messed it up. You know, in Kingwood, a couple years ago, they graduated that massive class of talented seniors with Solver and all of those guys, and so they're, you know, steadily rebuilding and getting back to form after missing that huge class.
The next round, Sunday's games, what might as well have been a Final Four for the state championship. You've got Dallas Jesuit, the 3 seed out of the North, taking on the Woodlands, the 1 seed out of the South, and then you had Highland Park, the 2 seed, taking on Westlake, the 1 seed, and, you know, pretty good games, pretty good. The first game was Westlake versus Highland Park. That game was back and forth. Highland Park went up 5-0, I believe, and then Westlake came right back, and they tied it up.
Yeah. Owen O'Neill had 5 goals in that game.
He did, and Owen O'Neill is a guy...
He's had a tough season, man. That guy took a back injury, was in the hospital, so he's kind of been on and off early, and then, you know, was able to get back in action kind of later in the season.
He wasn't an all-state guy, which I thought was interesting, and that's obviously because of his... you know, the tough luck he had.
Yeah, it's tough if you don't play all the games.
Right.
You know? So, you know, certainly an all-state caliber guy, but, you know, when you're in the room voting, which I haven't been, you know, it's tough to get those votes if you weren't able to play the whole season and put up some of the numbers that some of the other guys did.
Certainly an all-state effort against the Scots. It was 8-8 when Cooper Canese put his man on his hip and got that question mark. Nice hand exchange. Buried it. Against Soluri, Westlake did have opportunities. They had the ball out of timeout, took a shot, didn't have backup, which was tough. So the Scots are dancing. They make it back to the Final Four weekend. Again, both the D1 and the D2 teams, both in there. The last time they were in Round Rock, both teams won the state championships. They went ahead and just swept it. Everybody loves that when Highland Park wins the D1 and the D2 championships.
Right.
And they did that the last time they were in Round Rock. The other game was a rematch of a game that took place earlier in the season, Woodlands versus Jesuit, and same outcome, same exact score, 11-4, both times. Woodlands, pretty good.
Whoa.
Pretty good team, kind of put together. When you look at the all-state breakdown, you know, they've got 11 of 17 players in Houston's all-state.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, locked in. You got Jack Barron, Quinn Binney, Carson Daspit, Nathan Drickemer, Jason Kroslowitz, Ramsey McCreary, James McDowell, Jacob Moore, Jackson Shearer, Christian Starkey, Diego Zimmerman, all state. That doesn't happen anywhere other than Houston with the Woodlands. I mean, they were just absolutely dominant this year, going 20-1. Their only loss? No, I think they had 2 losses. No. Let me check that out real quick. Yeah, their only loss was to Highland Park, 5-4. 5-4 in a game where they were up 4-1 or 4-0 in the fourth quarter, and then suffered a pretty tough injury to Quinn Binney, who was knocked out for the season. So,
just kind of speaks to the depth that the Woodlands have. I mean, Quinn Binney, unbelievable starting varsity quarterback down at the Woodlands, Army commit. Be able to miss him and just, you know, drop him and just not miss a beat. You know, moving right along. They are tough offensively, man. They run great offense. They have threats all over the field. Their shooters are unbelievable. They finish the ball really well. Throw the ball to spots and know where each other are going to be before they're ever there. That's a really good team. And Kroslowitz, I mean, watching that Jesuit game, that kid played out of his mind. So
I would say that Kroslowitz is one of the stories of the season. His ability to just jump right in there for Gunnar Lukowski and they not miss a beat. I would say that while the Highlanders are definitely talented on offense, their defensive group is just, they lock it down. They are very, very tough, and this could be their best defensive group ever, which could, you know, allow them to take that next step.
They've been right there.
Right.
You know, they've been right there. This is, I don't know if this is the best class ever there, but it's really good, and it is deep.
It's very deep. As is the 2018 class across the board.
Right.
I would say that this is one of the deepest grades in the history of the state. And we're allowed to say that because this is year 8 of coverage for us. The Dallas Jesuit Rangers, got to give them their due. They made a run at it. They could have done it all again this year. They were going for the three-peat. The 2018 class for them, David Sprock, Tabor, Grayson Hassel, Aiden Johnson, Grayson Macaro. Who am I missing?
Tendy. Wilmerin.
He's a junior.
That's scary.
Right. So, I mean, they're pretty put together too, and they're right there, right where they needed to be. Somebody was going to lose. Like we said, this is a Final Four grouping on Sunday of the Super Regional. That could have been a Final Four grouping for the state championships. So now we move on.
Ooh, this weekend's going to be nuts.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some legends in the audience here today right now. We're not going to blow them up, but they know who they are. We've got St. Mark's taking on ESD, and then we've got Highland Park taking on the Woodlands. Of course, both of these games are rematches. Highland Park, as we said before, beat the Woodlands 5-4 down in Sherwood Forest. St. Mark's taking on ESD. This is round 3 fight. ESD won the first game. I believe it was 10-9. Caden Dundon, sneaky little guy, was able to finish that in overtime, and then they were able to beat the St. Mark's Lions 10-2 in the SPC championship. Thoughts?
This game's going to be crazy. I don't know what the streak is right now for ESD, but it is a lot, and it's tough to keep those going.
I do know the streak, actually. It's 9 wins in a row. The last time they lost was the 2013 state championship to St. Mark's in overtime.
That game was nuts. That was the greatest walk-off celly I've ever seen. Chantung just kind of real nice throwing his gloves and elbow pads off, but I digress here. This is going to be a great matchup. Two obviously very, very well coached groups. They're organized all over the field. You've got two great goaltenders. I think the face-off advantage might go to ESD, but again, the wing play of St. Mark's is nuts. Both have very stout defenses, obviously have a bunch of guys that can put the ball in the back of the net, and they're organized offensively, so this is going to be an unreal matchup. I believe both of them are 100% healthy, so they're at full strength, which you love to see this time of season, and both of these teams are capable of winning it all this year. Really, all four of them in this weekend are. They are put together nicely.
They are definitely put together. For me, the biggest thing, just as a coach in general, is I'm not a huge fan of playing a team 3 times in a season.
Right.
It's just tough. It's just tough to win that many games, especially when you're on that long of a streak. Side note, I believe it is St. Mark's prom that evening, though, so there might be some other things on top of mind, you know, so I have no doubt that Coach Lee will be able to keep them focused, but, you know, that's definitely a factor, too.
Yeah.
Because these kids are kids.
Yeah.
And that's real. But we're going to be there. 2 o'clock. That will be a great game. And then Highland Park versus the Woodlands is...
Whoa.
I mean...
1-goal game, rematch, let's go.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. Highland Park... defensively, I'm pretty sure all of their starters at defense are like 6'2", 6'3", and above. I mean, they're massive. Cade Sawstead had a 60-yard goal in the last game, which is pretty good. Offensively, they're clicking, so that makes it tough. But then the Woodlands is, you know, not scared.
No, they're not scared. That's one thing that the Woodlands has done to separate themselves, I think, from the pack down in Houston is they get on the road, they come to Dallas, they play all the top programs in the state, and then they travel out of state and go play a bunch of really good teams too. So they're not scared of anyone at this point. Coach Tinnell and crew, they make sure that their guys are ready to compete and have... At this point, they've got that experience. This is a group at the Woodlands that, you know, they came very close making a run at a football state title, were unable to do that, and this class has had it circled for a long time, and that's what they came here to do. That's what they're trying to do. This game's going to be nuts, I think.
So they're 20-1 this year.
It's pretty good.
And last year they were 23-2.
Right.
They've lost to Highland Park ESD and Georgetown Prep, and they haven't lost a game by more than 3 goals. So
tested.
Yeah. So they are, you know, capable. Obviously, this senior group is essentially legendary at this point in the Woodlands lacrosse program, and to win it, you know, you got to beat the best, right? One at a time. They were able to beat Jesuit. That's a big win. That's the defending 2-time state champions. And now they've got Highland Park, right? All of the teams that are competing for the state championship this weekend have won the state championship here recently. Jesuit, they bounced those guys. They won it the last 2 years. Highland Park, they won it the last time. It was not Jesuit winning it, in Austin at Round Rock. And then ESD recently won it in 2014, and then St. Mark's in 2013. So if you want to be the champ, you know, you got to go and beat the champ. And I don't think a group has really done that since our alma mater, the Capel Cowboys.
That's right.
Who,
Prop Blacks.
I mean, they shocked the world.
Yeah, that was a special group, though.
That was, and you know, with that being said, for the Woodlands, it's a special group, but it's also a special group for Highland Park.
Right.
It's also a special group for ESD.
And St. Mark's.
Yeah, it is a special group. I would say that their senior class isn't as big, but of course, Coach Lee doing what he does, developing his players and putting them in a position to succeed.
I'm excited for this weekend, not just for the games. It also kicks off, you know, our summer season, right, with StickStar Select teams and training. We've got a pretty awesome training opportunity, state championship seminar, going to be hosted by Anderson out at their new facility. Pumped to see that place. The response has been great. There's a bunch of people signed up for it. So StickStarLacrosse.com. Go check it out. If you're in Austin, you're a youth player, high school player, you should be out there training. We'll train you up.
8.5 hours of training, 3 hours Friday night, 3 hours on Saturday morning, and then 2.5 on Sunday. Pretty good rate. Check us out, StickStarLacrosse.com. You can register today. I think those were all of the key details. Oh, another thing. Last time the Woodlands was able to make it to their first ever state championship appearance was also in Round Rock when they defeated ESD to make it there. That was kind of an upset back then. Lastly, well, second to lastly, the All-American discussion. All-American discussion is pretty important.
It's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be tough. Last year, 4 All-Americans from Austin, 6 from Houston, 6 from Dallas. The returning All-Americans, because you always got to take those guys into account to see if they could do it again. Cade Sawstead, David Sprock, Jackson Shearer, Jacob Stadner, Ramsey McCreary, Reese Sullivan. For me right now, I'm going to say all of those guys are locks, except for my main man, Reese Sullivan. No shame in that, Reese Sullivan. King K just didn't have the same juice this year as they did last year. Not to say that he won't win it, but it's just going to be tougher.
It's going to be a little tougher, but, you know, this list is unbelievable. I mean, truly, once you've won it, it's becomes a little bit easier to repeat that, right?
It is. So when you look at it, the guys that are pretty much in the discussion are the guys who are all-state.
Right.
But again, you know, you only get 6 out of Dallas. You get 6 out of Houston, and then you get 4 out of Austin. Now, are they going to switch up those numbers? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's 8 Dallas, 4 Austin, 4 Houston. It's going to be tough this year. In Dallas, I mean,
whoa. When
you look at it, here's kind of how we have it broken down. At ESD, you've got Scott Bauer, Prescott King, Patrick Skowniak, Brandon Moe. At Jesuit, you've got Grayson Hassel, David Sprock, Aiden Johnston. Had a great year. The long stick, number 48. Paxton Alexander, Scully Genevieve, Cade Sawstead, Cam Reeves out of Highland Park. Garrett Mize, Sam Schroeder out of St. Mark's. And then Sammy Cambert out of Flower Mound and Peyton Jefferson out of Allen.
Yeah, you could even throw Ainero in there from Flower Mound as well. Like, it's going to be very, very difficult.
I'm going to go ahead and circle Prescott King. I already did that earlier. You know, it also kind of, I don't know, they obviously already voted on this. It'll be tough. It'll be tough. You know, how many do ESD, Highland Park, and Jesuit get, right? You know, how are they going to kind of parse these? I don't know. I'm going to say Cade Sawsted's going to get one. And then David Sprague was pretty good this year. Prescott King, Scott Bauer. When you think about, like,
Rick Skalniak.
Right.
Like
Brandon Moe.
Yeah, who do you, I mean, it's really tough to prepare for all those guys.
I would be shocked to see one of those guys left out. But again, we will see.
Right.
Out of Houston, you know, the Woodlands has an unbelievable amount of potential candidates there. They all had great years. I would say Jack Barron is one that you could circle.
Yeah.
Because he's really been tremendous
Ramsey
for them.
McCreary, the Notre Dame commit. Go ahead and circle that one. He's gonna do it again, I think.
Yeah, I would say him and Shear are guys that you can lock in. You know, maybe some sleeper picks out of Houston are guys like Sean Mowat-Larson and Seamus McFarland. We're not sleeping on them because we know exactly who those guys are. But, you know, in terms of ability, Sean Mowat-Larson had over 100 points, and Seamus is real good.
Real good.
You know. So, you know, those are guys who could be in the running for it. Also, Charles Sampson out of St. John's. And then in Austin, it's going to get a little sticky because, you know, a lot of really quality players there. You know, you got the mainstays at the main programs right now, which are Westlake and Lake Travis, but then there's players like Carver Scarnoulis, Costin Pendleton, Gabe Reno, who are as good as anybody.
Walt Alexander,
right.
Peter Lane, like Ty Badchung. It's going to be tough for the guys that have suffered injuries and didn't get to play the whole season, but I mean, Jackson Rose, like that guy puts the ball in the net.
You got to think that Tate Young and Jacob Stabner are probably guys who are going to lock that in.
Yeah.
So it gets, like we said, it gets pretty sticky after that. Lastly, when you think about All-Americans, then you start to think about All-State, and you think about All-Stars. And we've got one of those. StickStar has an All-Star game. We call it the Texas All-Star Roundup. This is year 4 of the Texas All-Star Roundup. This year it's the Battle of the Flags, Gonzales versus De Zavala. It's May 19th at Crum Lacrosse Facility on the campus of SMU, and it will be streamed live via StickStar Productions. That's us. Our goal with the Texas All-Star Roundup is to get the best collection of Texas lacrosse players to the field at one time, and our numbers don't lie. With that being said, it's prom season,
right?
You know, and graduation season, so
a lot of schedules,
a lot of conflicts, and our goal is to work around as many as possible. But this is kind of the weekend that we've settled into. Last year we had 42 All-State, 21 All-District, 10 Honorable Mention, 10 out of the 16 All-Americans were there to compete. 68 players committed to the following 46 different programs. We're not going to list all of them; they're on the website.
STX getting involved this year.
STX is getting involved. Might have some other people getting involved. The kit looks legit. It's all going to be a pretty first-rate event. Again, as we said, this is year 4.
Kind of settling in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy to do an all-star game. It's
renewing a tradition. We both played in multiple all-star games, and then they kind of went away. So it's awesome to get the all-star game back.
Right.
For these high school guys, you know, everyone but 2 programs, right, in their high school career with an L, right? If you make it to the playoffs, there's only 2 that come out of that, so it's awesome for these guys to kind of go out on a high note and play with a bunch of other guys that honestly they're going to see in the NCAA ranks as they move on in their careers.
Right now, we had players last year from Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Fort Worth, and the rosters are looking potent. We hope that you will join us on May 19th. StickStar Report, we're going to be just knocking some content out next weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will be there. We will live tweet everything. We might do a little Periscope action. If you'd like to see us do some Periscope pre-game, maybe a little Periscope at halftime, especially in the later games. Some of the earlier games, we're going to be working through our seminar schedule. We might do that. We might throw a poll up for you guys to let us know, but I think it could be fun. We have a mic, right, that our roving reporter Logan McCullough, handling Rats Report. Make sure to check out Rats Report this year. StickStar is covering the Dallas Rattlers at all of their local games.
Yeah, get out to the Star. Go watch those guys.
We need everybody to support the Dallas Rattlers. We support the Dallas Rattlers with Rats Report, the original.
It's crucial that the Texas lacrosse community, you're down in Houston, you're down in Austin, get a bus together, right? Throw some kids on a bus, buy a group sales, get up there, get the kids to a pro lacrosse game, because the product is unbelievable in person. It is way fast, and those guys get to their spots on the field very quickly, and for players, it's important to learn by imitation, and no better people to imitate than the guys at the pros and how they're playing the game.
They are most certainly the best, and we're pumped that we have our own professional lacrosse team taking part in the MLL here in North Texas. We are very fortunate, so let's not take that for granted. Let's go ahead and get up to the Star. Kyle, anything?
No, this has been sick. Are we throwing down predictions here? I will.
I won't.
Okay.
But
well, then I won't.
Yeah, I'm not a big predictor unless we're in very close circles.
Right.
But I'll tell him. I won't tell you guys. Anthony Crimmins, StickStar Lacrosse, Kyle Saunders, StickStar Production, StickStar Report, Reggie on the 1s and 2s. We're going to just saddle up and we're going to head on down to a little place they like to call Austin, Massachusetts. We will see y'all real soon.